Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Bizarro Comics. This was a hardcover anthology released by DC Comics in 2001, and it's kind of interesting. They got all of these independent comic artists to do DC's characters. Some of them are like kind of full-on indie artists. Some of them are just guys who draw kids comics for like Nickelodeon and stuff. But they're all definitely very odd and different takes on the DC universe. Starts off with a Matt Groening cover. There's an interesting story behind this. This wasn't the first choice for the cover. Apparently DC commissioned Dan Clowes to draw it. I'm kind of surprised he agreed to do it. But he did, and I think they didn't like it, or they gave him shit about it, and he was like, fuck you guys. So at the last minute, they had to get this cover. I actually looked it up on the internet. The art exists. I have it here on my little iPad. And this was the cover that Dan Clowes envisioned. The strange lives of your favorite DC characters. Aquaman's unwanted admirer. The day Green Lantern took a second job. The Flash audited by the IRS. Superman's sentimental mood. Batman sad and alone. This is a way better cover than the one they did. In fact, this is way better than most of the comics in this collection. So I don't know what DC's problem was, but it's pretty dumb of them, because that's a great cover. But it's Matt Groening, whatever. And I'm sure Matt Groening just signed his name and Bill Morrison drew it like he does with all of his stuff. Pretty nicely made hardcover. Nice little embossed lettering. It's a pretty slick production. So let's crack this open. We got a lot to look at. Nice end papers with all little vignettes of the art we're about to see. Contents pages. And we start off with the big, the meat of this issue. It's like begins and ends the collection is this long story. It's Bizarre Wars. And this is part one. It's written by a guy named Chris Duffy, who I guess worked for Nickelodeon magazine. He was like the editor of the comic section or something like that. It's drawn by Steven DiStefano. Probably best known for his 80s DC comic Amazing Man, which I've never read. But he's definitely got better after that and has done all kinds of great, funny cartooning over the years. I think he's also an animator. But I kind of like this homage here. It's almost like they're trying to pay homage to Super Duper Man from Mad Comics. The way he draws Superman all dopey like this. So Mr. Mxyzptlk is the main character of this story, and he returns to the fifth dimension. Once again, Superman outsmarted him, and he finds out that he's been appointed absolute ruler by the dimensional parliament, and everyone runs up to him and is giving him huzzas. And the dimensional rulers who were in charge seem to be leaving in a hurry. They really want to just pass it on to him and get the hell out of there. And we find out why. I did want to mention, I don't know if it's Steven DiStefano wasn't used to drawing, like, there's basically 40 pages in this collection he draws. It's not as good as normal DiStefano is. It's a little, I don't know, it's not up to snuff. Still pretty great cartoonist. Very fun style. But I expect a little bit more from him. So I do like this page where it almost, I don't know, reminds me of like Hey Look or something. The crowd is this weird black and white massive heads. Very strange. So now we find out why those guys were, the dimensional rulers were in such a hurry. They knew that this guy was coming. And this guy is named A. He's almost like a cosmic god. Almost like omnipotent. And he has a little, almost like his herald. This woman here. This design looks very familiar to me. Pretty sure it's a Jack Kirby design. It looks like some crazy thing Jack Kirby would design. I don't know, though. I couldn't find it on the internet because his name's A. It's kind of hard to look up, as you can imagine. Just the letter A, that's his name. And He's basically like the Grandmaster in Marvel Comics. He goes to all these planets and dimensions, and he challenges the denizens of those places to like games, and he always wins. And so, and then he gets to basically rule that dimension. The other thing is like I said, he's omnipotent. So people try to fight him off. You can't fight him off. Even if you're omnipotent like Mr. Mxyzptlk, he's just immune. So you got to play his games. I just love the design. It's such a weird character. I'm pretty sure it's Kirby. She basically says you can pick a champion. And Mxyzptlk says, oh, even though Superman's my, nemesis, he is pretty formidable. He's going to be my champion. And he goes into this Costume Crusaders catalog. And this is nice. Look at this total homage to Steve Ditko here. Very, very good Ditko dimension art here. He goes through all these doors and finds all these variant Supermans. The very first one, he's like, this guy can't even fly. That shitty electric blue Superman from the, the late 90s? I like this. We see the Death of Superman cover image, and he's like, nah, too dead for my purposes. And then finally he finds Superman. And for the rest of the comic, it's kind of neat how DiStefano kind of draws Superman in this kind of very Max Fleischer cartoon way. That kind of classic 40s Superman, but mixed with the modern costume. So Mxyzptlk has to swallow his pride and asks Superman for help. Superman kind of scoffs at him, and Mxyzptlk gets so mad, he's like, fuck you. I'll get some other Superman to help me. See what I mean about the Max Fleischer cartoon Superman? That's kind of dead on. So he opens another door, and it's Bizarro. And for some reason, Bizarro keeps calling him Greg throughout the comic. I don't get the joke. I think it's an inside joke. I really like the way he draws Bizarro, though. It's a really good character design. He's kind of like the Incredible Hulk, like a white Hulk. So the contests begin. Meanwhile, Superman is hanging out with the JLA, and he's like, guys, I feel kind of bad for blowing off Mxyzptlk. Would you guys come and help me? I think I should go to his dimension, help out. I mean, Superman helps everyone, right? So he's feeling a little guilty. And then Mxyzptlk keeps looking in Bizarro's brain for some reason. And we get this thing that they call X-rays, which I think are just an excuse for guest artists who didn't want to do a whole story and just wanted to draw like a spread or a pinup page to be allowed to contribute. And this is by Gregory Benton, who did a lot of stuff for Nickelodeon Magazine, and I think he went on to do some kids' books. I really like this cartooning and these examples of how dumb Bizarros are. Like this is like a Gary Larson panel. It's these cows are about to eat a Bizarro on a table. This Bizarros are all flying backwards. And I like these young lovers. They're just sticking their fingers in each other's ear. That's their romantic gesture. We see all these Bizarros getting haircuts. This guy's just running over their heads with a lawnmower. This is one of the better pages in the book. I gotta say, I hope I don't sound too negative in this one, but there's a lot of comics in here that annoy the shit out of me. They really kind of squandered the chance to get some of these great cartoonists to let them go a little crazy. I'm not saying like have Ivan Brunetti have his way with a Wonder Woman comic. I'm just saying a lot of these guys are like just really taming it down. Where some of these cartoonists in here that usually do great stuff, not so great. A lot of great cartooning though. Speaking of which, here's the second X-ray, and it's John Kirschbaum, the guy, of Wiggly Reader fame. And man, I love the way this guy cartoons. It's just like that naturally, perfectly funny style. Though to be honest, there's not really any funny gags going on here. Just a bunch of DC Comics kind of being silly, but not necessarily funny at all. Kind of weird. But man, I just love seeing Kirschbaum draw all these DC characters. It's kind of fun. Now back to the main plot. I'm not going to really get into this plot that much. To be honest, guys, it's kind of just, I don't know, weirdly written. It's not funny. And even the plot is just kind of like, what? Like, it just kind of meanders. Another X-ray by Beto Hernandez. This is fun seeing Gilbert get to draw all these heroes. This little superhero clubhouse. No villains allowed. I like how Darkseid and Solomon Grundy are crying like little kids. Well, I guess they're all little kids. Gorilla Grodd. This is kind of cute. And so Mixoplex throws all these comics at Bizarro. He's like, you got to learn about superheroes. You don't even know what's up. So he gives him like 20 minutes to read all these comics, to a crash course on superheroes. And as he's reading them, he's all like, fight, team up, fight. No, watch out for mean imposter. Oh, Batman, you and your big old cave. And so finally, he finishes the comics, and he tells A, he says, Bizarro gonna kick your rear end with comics. And he draws all these comics. That's his way to compete with A. Of course, this is also the framing device for the comics we're about to read. This first story is called Super Pets, story by Sam Henderson of Magic Whistle fame, and art by Bob Fingerman. And we see Clark Kent's parents, or Superman's parents, putting him in the rocket ship, but for some reason they put all of these other animals in the ship. Fluff E, Fido, Spark L. And just like in the DCU, he lands on Earth, is adopted by the Kents, and they also take in all of his animals. This is some nice cartooning by Fingerman. This is also, once again, disappointing. Sam Henderson is usually so fucking funny. And this isn't that funny. I mean, it's kind of fun to read. It's not the worst comic, but it's just Sam Henderson usually makes me laugh out loud, you know? This definitely does not do that. Super Elephant. So, of course, all the animals have superpowers. So it's like a veritable legion of super pets flying around Smallville. And because of this, everyone kind of ignores Superman. They're like, thanks for saving our baby, but we're watching this flying zebra. That's kind of more interesting. And he doesn't get the job at the Daily Planet. He can't get a date with Lois Lane. And then we see, meanwhile, on Krypton, well, what do you know? The planet didn't blow up after all. And, of course, Superman's mother is very angry with Jor-El. That's probably the best joke in the comic. So this is Craig Thompson art. This is a Green Lantern and the Afterthoughts. This is also written by Chris Stuffy, the guy from Nickelodeon. Really fun cartooning from Craig Thompson. I love when Craig Thompson draws all like silly and zany like this. He's really good at it. This is some damn good, fun stuff. So we see Green Lantern mopping up these criminals, using his powers. He has a boxing glove, some marbles, green marbles, and, you know, that trip up the bad guys. And then after Green Lantern leaves, the constructs that he made with his magic ring, they're still around. They haven't disappeared. And they basically have this identity crisis. So like, why are we here? Where did we come from? What's the meaning of life? They try to figure out the meaning of life. We see them at museums, at a church, going to a psychiatrist, going to some kind of guru. And finally, they go to Dr. Fate's office. And he tells them what's up. He's like, yeah, sorry. Sometimes Green Lantern's constructs, they fade out in a little while. It takes them a while to fade out. And they look out the window and everyone's lauding Green Lantern. And they're like, Father. But then they start disappearing. And it's kind of like the sad thing. They all cry, I love you guys. And then they disappear to nothingness. It just has this melancholy ending of these three silent panels. Really beautifully drawn, by the way. You guys, so no matter about how much quibbling I do about some of these stories, this is worth the price of admission. The Batman, fucking Tony Millionaire drawing Batman. This just blew me away when I first saw this. It still does. I would love to read a Batman comic in this style. It's this crazy, like, retro, like 1938 version, or whenever Batman came out, 39, 40. And this is written by Chip Kidd, the famous designer who did a couple books on Batman. I think this might be one of the few comic stories Chip Kidd's ever written. It still definitely looks like Tony Millionaire. But man, I love the way this is so good to me. So Batman meets the Penguin. And he's hanging out with his fiancée, Julie. And Julie seems like she's in a daze. And Bruce is just kind of like, that was weird. And then look at this stuff. It's Batman fighting crime, but drawn by Tony Millionaire. It's craziness. It's so good to me. So that night, he finds Julie in his mansion. And she's obviously, very dazed. She's under some hypnotic spell. So he gets in his bat gyro. And he falls into this trap laid by the Penguin. I like this making fun of the Golden Age comics where the writer got carried away and didn't leave enough room for the artists. It's just this little strip. And this is like this long explanation by Batman of how he found out that the Penguin was at the bottom of all of this business. Penguin sticks a giant gorilla on Batman. When Batman reaches for his batarang, there's a banana in the holster. So he just tosses it over this cliff. But that works like a charm because the gorilla jumps over the cliff to get the banana and knocks the Penguin into this vat of cod liver oil. Such a pity for the gorilla. Oh my God. Yeah, so like, I was actually reading this last night thinking like, maybe I could sell this. There's so many like comics in here that aren't really worth my time. But man, I can't just for this alone. But there's some other good stuff in here, believe me. So this next one is Captain Marvel and the Sham Shazam. Another story written by Sam Henderson. This one's drawn by Dean Haspiel. I guess of Billy Dogma fame. He's been, farting around the comic industry for decades. To be honest, I never really liked anything he ever did. He's got a decent style, but I mean, the little things I've read by him, just not good. So I'm glad Sam Henderson is writing this, but once again, Sam Henderson not nearly as funny as he normally is in this. This is not that funny. We get to see Dr. Savannah. And Dr. Savannah does this trick Shazam into giving him another magic word. So instead of Shazam, first letter is named after all these heroes. There was once this fellow named Duh. So he had the stupidity of Demosthenes, the clumsiness of Olauses, and the cluelessness of Hopeless Glees. Hopeless Glees? And so he dresses up like Shazam, convinces Billy Batson to say duh before he says Shazam. And when he does, when he turns into Shazam, he turns into this like moronic Shazam, like Captain Marvel from the Mad Comics. But then he says Shazam again, and he turns back into Captain Marvel. This is a very Sam Henderson thing where he says, here's your reward for capturing Savannah. You're welcome. I'll be donating this money to a good cause. Ice cream for everyone. Just a kind of dopey Sam Henderson ending. This next one is Letitia Lerner, Superman's babysitter. And this has a story behind it. This story was actually meant as a backup for a normal DC comic, a Superman comic. And people got so outraged. I think they had to take it out of the reprint or something like that. Something happened where people were so outraged by the story that they had to pull it. It might have been pulled before it was even printed. But then DC figured, okay, this is a graphic novel or whatever collection that's geared more towards an adult audience, so we can put it in there. It's not like a normal Superman comic. And as you can already tell, probably, beautiful art by Kyle Baker. And this is written by Kyle Baker, and his wife, Liz Glass, co-writes it. And Mom, Pa, Kent finally are like, we got to get a babysitter. We need a night out in the town. Of course, they're incredibly worried because their son is super Kal-El. His crib has a giant boulder on it. And all these hijinks ensue. This is very much like a great old cartoon. The boulder crashes to the basement. She's like, he's crushed under the rock. Of course, he's fine. He's climbing up these bookshelves, doing all this typical, like, cartoony, zany antics. He bites this electrical cord, and he's fine, but she gets electrocuted. Look at this, he's hungry, so he just picks up a cow and is sucking at the udders. It's almost like Uni Ganesh. Not Ganesh, I'm sorry, Uni Krishna. Sucking the milk right out of the teat. I guess this is pretty much worth the price of admission, too. This is a great story. Great, man, Kyle Barker. Kyle Baker just going to town. Look at these gorgeous colors. Just masterful cartooning. This really is just a storyboard for a great cartoon. This would be a great cartoon. So more antics ensue. She finally gets him home. This is what got him in trouble. Kal-El crawls into the microwave. And he's just being baked in there, or microwaved in there, right when Mom, Pa, Kent come home. And she's like, oh shit, I'm fucked. And they just reach into their pockets and they're like, we'll pay double. Can you work next weekend? Because just the fact that she survived the night babysitting Super Baby was like, wow, she's a good babysitter. Next we have Aquaman and Silence of the Fishes. Evan Dorkin, writer of Milk and Cheese fame. Once again, usually a very funny writer. I usually always enjoy his stuff. And this isn't that great. It's co-written with Brian David Marshall. I don't know much about that guy. Actually, I took a little picture. Let me see if he did anything worth mentioning. I can't even see him in here, so screw it. I don't know who he is. Wait, is it here? Give me a sec. Oh, here we go. So this is Brian David Marshall. Let me, I'm sorry about this. Oh, no information about him at all. So sorry about that waste of time. So the art on here is by Bill Wray, who I usually really like. But I don't like the art on this. I don't know what he's doing. It's just the way he draws Aquaman's wife's face and stuff. Just a lot of this is just kind of ugly and crappy looking to me. Usually Bill Wray does draw kind of ugly, but it's an appealing, fun ugly. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with this one. Like that's just, I don't know, weird. Basically in the story, Aquaman and his aqua family are tied up by Black Manta. And I guess Aquaman pissed off all the fishes, so he can't call them. And he's too proud to make up with them. So at the end, he's like, give me a chance. I'll think our way out of this. And then 3 weeks later, they're just skeletons. Not very good. So this next story is This is by the guy, written by the guy who's the voice of Brack on Spaceman, Space Ghost Coast to Coast. His name's Andy Merrill, and it's drawn by Jason Little. And this is, I don't know, it's just, I guess it's kind of cute, a little cutesy story where it's a kid in the bathtub playing with all of his toys. Aquaman and Porcine Panic. So he's got one of these like pig sponge gloves. And it's just this kid, his imagination is playing, you know, like, yeah, basically it's just kind of cute. This art is like almost overly slick, but it kind of fits the story since you're imagining that these are just like toys, you know. Yeah, not very good. This one I was excited for to see in the contents page. It's the Metal Men in Pinocchio Syndrome, because I love Pat McEwen's cartooning. This is written by Bob Fingerman, once again, art by Pat McEwen. And, you know, Pat McEwen's cartooning is pretty nice in this, but not nearly as nice as normal. It's almost like he toned it down. It's weird. There's panels in here where it almost looks like Pat McEwen is trying to, like, morph his style with Arthur Adams' style. So it's just very odd, Pat McEwen art. Once again, Bob Fingerman, man, that guy can draw. He's got some drawing chops. But I don't think I've ever read anything funny by that guy. It's this is not very funny at all. It reminds me of like a Gen 13 comic from the 90s. Remember that superhero comic of the cool teenagers? And this is what it reminds me of, the humor. Basically, the metal men go out to a nightclub. And it's just all this, like, these are, some of these jokes are like from Friends, the TV show. They're just so, this is just so not funny. Even like the worst Pat McEwen is still kind of appealing to me. Some of these panels look great to me, the cartooning. Oh, this one's wretched. Wonder Girl versus Wonder Tot. Andy Watson's story. Andy Watson's the guy who did all these comics for Oni Press. He always got his own miniseries. They would always be like advertised. It's like, ooh, the new Andy Watson comic. I don't know anyone who ever read that guy's comics. I'm speaking from ignorance. I've never read them myself. But they don't look good. And at least from this story, he's not a very good writer. It's drawn by Mark Crilly. His big claim to fame is that Akiko comic, which is kind of a kid's comic. And it's basically like this faux manga style. That's not very good. All around, this is probably the biggest loser in the book. It's just a very cutesy story of Wonder Girl and Wonder Tot getting in this race, causing a little havoc, and then they get punished at the end by Wonder Woman. And it's just like, I mean, little Archie comics are better than this. Most Archie comics stories are better than this. This next one is Hawkman, the Egg Napper. And this is written by James Kachalka, another guy who I think has probably never written anything good in his life, even though I've only read a handful of his stories. Sorry. See, I told you I'm going to sound a little negative in this one, but the promise of this book was really squandered, and it kind of annoys me. But man, look at this art by Dylan Horrocks. I mean, Dylan Horrocks is the New Zealand cartoonist who, what's his big comic called again? Nowheresville? Is that Dylan Horrocks? Sorry to look up this stuff, guys. I just kind of want to, I'm sorry, Hicksville, I meant to say. Which is weird because I love that comic. And I've read it many times. I just forgot the name. But I love this crazy, crude, retro way he draws Hawkman. And he draws this really cute bird, too. And the story is just nothing. It's like, basically this bird's like, someone stole my egg. And Hawkman says, I'll find your egg. But this is a great art. Look at just like the shading here, this crudeness. It's almost like Jesse Marsh drawing Hawkman, who I am not a fan of. Because it's kind of hard, like, if you can draw, to, like, unlearn what you know about drawing. This really just looks like the work of a guy who can barely draw, like some of those early Golden Age comics. So Hawkman finds this guy in a spaceship. He's got the egg. He rips open the craft and gets the egg back. Very just badly written, dumb comic. But really like this interesting weird art. Okay, maybe this is the worst comic in here. There's going to be a lot of contestants. This is written by Will Pfeiffer with a P. This guy, he did some stuff for like Vertigo, I think. Some superhero stuff. And drawn by Jill Thompson. And this is before Jill Thompson got good. Jill Thompson had all these high-profile things, dude, I think mainly because she drew Sandman. So she kind of had this cachet. She was so bad the first few years of her cartooning career. This arc she did for The Invisibles, which is another high-profile gig, getting to write The Invisibles or draw it for Grant Morrison. Pretty crappy. So this is still that era. She's now a pretty damn good cartoonist. Her Scary Godmother stuff and other stuff she's done. But man, this art is just kind of really turns me off. Just makes me, it's gross to me. And the thing is, too, the story, this could be in the back of a Green Lantern as a cute little story. There's nothing that like, oh yeah, we're playing around with the DC universe. We're making fun of it. This is just some crappy Green Lantern story where this young guy gets to join the Green Lantern Corps. And I guess the biggest joke in here is that his commanding officer's name is Sergeant Rock. And he's this giant sentient rock. I mean, that's the level that we're dealing with here. So just another complete waste of space. This one's kind of cute. It's Supergirl and Mary Marvel, written by Dylan Horrocks, who we just saw the art on the Hawkman strip by, and drawn by Jessica Abel. And I kind of like this Jessica Abel art. I definitely became more of a fan of hers when she started drawing more cartoony. Her early stuff where she was trying to draw more realistic and really not very appealing, but this is nice looking to me. So basically this is just a nice little story about Supergirl, hasn't seen Mary Marvel in a while, and they're catching up, talking about their lives, very realistic dialogue. And it's almost like one of those little indie comics, but it's, instead of featuring two young slackers, it's Supergirl and Mary Marvel. I mean, nothing special, but it's pretty well written. And I kind of like this cartooning. Even though it's a little erratic. Some of the panels I like more than others. This one I had such high hopes for, but it's not that great. Commandy, the last band on Earth. And this is Tom Hart drawing over, I gotta look this up, guys, sorry. Oh, it's a Nick Bertozzi script. And drawn by Tom Hart. And Matt Madden does the colors, another cartoonist. And I like Tom Hart's art. You know, this is pretty much how he always draws this style. He's most famous for his Hutch Owens Working Hard. And pretty much after that, he did nothing that anyone ever cared about ever again, it seems like. So I guess in this post-apocalyptic Commandy world, Commandy has started a band, the last band on Earth, and they're like preaching love between the species. And there's these two kind of ingrates there who are trying to sabotage Commandy's plan, these two. They're like whispering into people's ear, making up stuff that Commandy says, grabbing like a auxiliary mic to make it seem like Commandy's saying shitty things to foment within the crowd. This is one of Commandy's songs. I got huge boatloads of love, puking up buckets full of love. And then the bad guys are going to shoot Commandy in the head, and OMAC shows up and knocks him out. And then he just runs off. This comic does look and reads like it was just written by like a 12-year-old, but kind of in a fun way. This story is not that great. It's called Help Superman, and it's written by Jeff Smith of Bone fame. But man, this art by Paul Pope, this is gorgeous stuff. And this is before Paul Pope was a mainstream DC guy. He had just gotten his first Vertigo comic from them. He was considered like a full-on indie guy. Of course, a few years later, he'd be doing Batman comics left and right and doing tons of mainstream stuff. Adam Strange. But this was like weird back then, seeing Paul Pope draw Superman. And man, does it look good. There's some nice stuff. Basically, Bizarro is tearing up this space station. And Superman has got to rescue these astronauts. And Superman realizes that Bizarro gets everything backwards. I'll use reverse psychology on him. And so it's a test of wits, which isn't that hard with Bizarro. And he uses this reverse psychology on him. He convinces Bizarro to join this like commune garden and do good. He's like, that's how you can prove that you really hate me. I should mention, the colors on this are by Lee Lowridge. I don't know that name, but these are beautiful colors too. This is just a really good looking comic all around. Kind of a silly little story, but yeah, it's really nice seeing Paul Pope draw this. This next one is Aquaman and the Man Who Cried Fish. It's written by a guy named Jeff Sekaj and drawn by Brian Ralph. And we see Aquaman keeps calling his fish for help, and then as a practical joke and saying, I was kidding. You know, just like the boy who cried wolf. He keeps doing it, the fish are getting pissed off. And finally, the last time he calls them for aid, this giant fish comes and swallows Aquaman. And he's stuck in the belly of this Leviathan-like fish. You know, not much of a story, but it's kind of nice seeing Brian Ralph draw Aquaman. Oh, this next one is so disappointing because it's art by Dave Cooper. I just love Dave Cooper stuff. And I love when he writes his own stuff because he's just almost as good a writer as he's an artist. He's a damn good writer, but he's such a great artist, you know, it's hard to keep up. But once again, we got a story by Bob Fingerman. So this is not funny at all. And it's just this kind of cutesy story of Wonder Woman and two other Amazons going to the mall to buy a bathing suit so they can go to the beach. Really nice Dave Cooper cartooning. But you can tell almost it's like not as good as his normal stuff. I think he was just like, oh man, I can't believe I got roped in and drawn this stupid script. It's still pretty damn nice seeing Dave Cooper anytime. There's these two scrawny sisters. And basically that's the humor. This is like, once again, it's like just a bad Archie comic. They're being mean. And I love the way he draws Wonder Woman. It's so adorable. So yeah, there's really no story to tell. It's just bad gag after bad gag. But some nice Dave Cooper art. This next one is Bats Outta Heck. Story by Ellen Forney, art by Ariel Bordeaux. And I haven't read much of their work. I've seen them in various compilations. Not a big fan of Ariel Bordeaux's work. Kind of crude, kind of simplistic. Though I gotta say, it's kind of cute. If I was reading a kid's comic by her, it would fit. You know, the art would fit. And there's just another cutesy little story about young Batgirl. Oh, here's another one that I can't sell this book. Who Erased the Eraser? Written by Eddie Campbell and drawn by Hunt Emerson. Guys, I fucking love this Hunt Emerson drawn Batman. This cartooning style, it's like if Batman was published in the Beano. This just looks so fucking good to me. I gotta see what the colorist is on this because the colors are really nice too. Just really beautiful primary stuff going on. Oh, it's Rick Taylor. He's a good colorist. He did tons of stuff for DC. I've always liked his stuff. Just drink that in, right into your eyeballs. I love the way he draws Robin, too. I don't know why he looks like that with this ginger guy. So I guess Batman's telling Robin about this villain he once fought. And I think this is a real villain from a real Batman comic called the Eraser. I like this mod-looking intro for him. So I guess his origin story was he actually went to the same school Bruce Wayne did, and he was very jealous of him. And so he got into a life of crime. His whole deal was for 20% of the take of a job, he would erase all the evidence of it. So if you committed a crime, you'd hire him, and he would go to the scene of the crime and get rid of all the evidence. And so he runs into Bruce Wayne one day, and he tells him how he's always hated him. And Bruce Wayne's just like, really? I didn't even know you. But then Robin arrived and saved the day. And Batman and Robin kicked the Eraser's ass. This is just such fun cartooning to me. I think this looks so good. So he's trying to find out what happened to the Eraser. And he's at this class reunion, and the alter ego of the Eraser's there. He's this old, bitter man now. He's glaring at Bruce Wayne, but he kind of gives up. He's like, what was I thinking? I'm never going to take down Bruce Wayne. He's too powerful. And then he goes home and tries on his old Eraser outfit. I'm such a sap. God, I fucking love that panel. That's an arm tattoo right there. I want that. Oh, this one's another terrible one. So this, Mark Crilly and Andy Watson switch duties. This time Mark Crilly scripts, writes, and Andy Watson draws. And yeah, Mark Crilly writes as bad as he draws. And I guess Andy Watson's kind of got this interesting style going on. But, I don't really care. Did I say the title? First Contact. It's about the Atom. And just a bunch of cutesy-wootsy little jokes about the Atom. He basically has to shrink down to find Wonder Woman's contact lens. Oh, God, I love this one. At least just for the art. It's Batman, written by Paul Pope and drawn by Jay Stevens. And, I guess he does the colors too, which is worth mentioning because the colors look great. Look at the colors on that logo. This panel right here is fucking amazing to me. That looks so good. So we see this little kid. He's lost in the woods. And he finds this fissure, a little cave. And he sees some light. And he finds Batman's Batcave. And he comes out and he's like, wow, Batman's real. My brother said he's just a urban legend. He steals one of these moonstones. And he's eating a sandwich. And then now we cut away. We see Batman. He finds the sandwich. Is like, what the hell? Man, I love the way he draws Batman. That dinosaur's pretty funny. And he finds the cute little kid asleep in his car in the Batmobile. And he drives him home and puts him back into bed. So the kid will just think it's a dream. He tells his brother, of course the brother's like, Batman's not real. He's like the Tooth Fairy or the Yeti. And he's like, oh, maybe it was a dream. But then he finds the moon rock in his backpack. And he says, Batman exists. He's all happy. Man, that looks really good to me. I don't know if you guys ever saw Jay Stevens stuff. He did all those, what is it? Atomic City Tales and Jet Cat. He does that cartoon on Nickelodeon. He's just a really good cartoonist. He's doing horror comics now. I can't remember the name of him. I haven't read him, but everyone's raving about him. Solomon Grundy, Bored on a Monday. I think it's a pretty dumb yet kind of good pun. And this is written by Evan Dorkin and drawn by Disraeli, the English cartoonist. Kind of a weird little cartooning here going on, also with the colors. Disraeli colors it, and there's some pretty weird, bizarro colors in here. Kind of an okay gag, but yeah, not up to Evan Dorkin's usual chuckle worthiness. This one, I don't really get it all. There's something weird about the story, though. They say that it's written by a guy named Alvin Schwartz. Alvin Schwartz wrote for DC all throughout, like, the 50s and 60s and 70s, I think. And supposedly he created Bizarro. He wrote the very first Bizarro story when he was writing for Superman. So I don't know. I guess this is 2001 this came out. I guess he was an old man and they asked him to write a Bizarro story. And it kind of feels like that. It's a very weird story. Not very good. Doesn't really make sense. It just seems really like if like a resident of a duplex planet wrote a Bizarro story. Because maybe that's what it kind of was. Hate to be ageist. I mean, I'm getting pretty old, so. But I don't know how old he was then. But he was obviously a pretty old guy who hadn't written a comic in a long time. The art's very nice, though. Great cartooning. From Roger Landridge, who's had plenty of titles from Fantagraphics. Drew the Muppets comic for a while. Just a very slick, nice, cartoony style. I don't even know if I can really explain this one. I guess one day there's a new Bizarro on Planet Bizarro. He calls himself Boing, and he's like a iconoclast Bizarro. He likes to walk around in his hand, and he criticizes all the other Bizarros for being square and for not thinking outside the box. So it's really causing distress among Bizarro number 1 and Lois number 1, Bizarro Lois. And like, we got to do something about this guy. He's causing social unrest, basically. And of course, there's some goofy Bizarro gags, like they're laying on their kitchen table and the food is on their chair. That's how they eat dinner, stuff like that. I kind of like these rich colors. This is another Lee Lowridge job. I really like that guy. So Bizarro goes to our planet, or, the non-Bizarro Earth, to get Superman's help. And Superman makes a giant flute out of a tree for Boing. He says, hey, Boing, play this. And everything's okay. Just because he's playing this flute, nobody cares that he's different now, kind of a beatnik. We even see some beatnik Bizarros grooving to his flute playing. Yeah, it's a very odd story. Very weird. Not very funny. So next we have the world's finest team, and that's really Superman. A little shout out to XTC. Written by Ivan Brunetti and drawn by Evan Dorkin. Really like this cutesy Evan Dorkin style. And this is kind of commenting on that thing that we all wondered as little kids when you read World's Finest. It's like, what the hell does Superman need Batman around for? So Batman gets, he gets the call from Superman. So he gets dressed as fast as he can. He gets into his Batmobile, climbs up this castle, and Superman's got everything wrapped up. He's like, what took you so long? I've got it all under control. And Batman's like, but I've got a batarang. No, don't worry about it. You can go home if you want. Really fun cartoony here. It's almost like UPA animation. Very simple. And Batman, I like how Batman says, I could take some soil samples back to the lab and run them through my Bat computer. It's like, no need. I got my X-ray vision. Batman's like, do you want to borrow my micro-bat sonar? Of course, Superman doesn't need anything. So, I mean, we all wonder this as kids. It's like, what the hell? It seems very like a mismatched duo. And Batman goes back to the Batcave, feeling really unappreciated. Even goes to a psychiatrist to talk about it. And he gets a kryptonite rock and is going to bring it to Superman's Fortress of Solitude. But when he looks in the window, Superman is dressing up in a Batman mask, all proud of himself, cosplaying. And instead of making Batman happy, he's just like pathetic, and he turns away. Kind of a weird ending, but I kind of like that ending. It just, I think the last panel needs to be rewritten. That doesn't really make sense. But pretty funny concept, just because it's something, you know, most kids thought about when they were reading those comics. This one's really dumb. It's Evan Dorkin writing and Carol Lay drawing. And just the art doesn't look very good. And also, this is just a dumb gag. Evan Dorkin, come on. You could do better than that. So this next story is Wonder Woman's Day Off. Story by Ariel Bordeaux, art by Ellen Forney. And this is, you know, it's not much of a story, but I really like the way Ellen Forney draws Wonder Woman with her gap tooth. It almost looks like a less illustrative Dave Cooper. It looks so great to me. So Wonder Woman, basically this story is just about Wonder Woman taking a day off, and then she goes to a poetry slam, reads one of her poems, and everyone loves it. Even Batman and Hawkman are crying. So pretty dumb story, but I like that cartooning. This one's so sad it's only a page. This is like one of my favorites in the book. This is The Unknown Challenges of the Challengers of the Unknown, written by Evan Dorkin and drawn by Bill Wray. And Bill Wray really redeems himself in this story. Look at this amazing amalgam of Kirby and Wood he's doing here. Such a great, fun parody of it. And basically it's just making fun of the Challengers of the Unknown. They're just all doing these kind of mundane things. But the narrator's building it up like only these 4 challengers who are living on borrowed time could do such things. Ace Morgan obtains financing for improvements to Challengers Mountain at a 6.5% rate. Red Ryan converts difficult game-winning 7-10 split. And I like it, they're playing against the Sea Devils. Professor Haley successfully guesses correct amount of jelly beans in jar. Wins 13-inch color TV. Rocky Davis eats British beef. I think this was the time of the mad cow. So that's a little dated there. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe English people still can't eat beef. Oh, man, I really like this next one. This is Without You, I'm Nothing. And it's written by Evan Dorkin. And artist is Steve Weissman of Yikes fame. And this is kind of a very sloppy Steve Weissman, but I kind of like it. And basically, we see all these sidekicks, these discarded sidekicks from DC history. And they're just basically waiting, just like the guys do at Walmart. Construction guys wait to get a job. They wait here every day, hoping that some superhero will say like, hey, I need 2 sidekicks to help me with this villain. And that's exactly what happened. This guy shows up. I don't know who that is. And he picks Brute from Sandman, those Kirby Sandman comics. He says, okay, the big guy, the tiger and the white blob. I don't even know. Oh, it's Mr. Tawny from Captain Marvel. Talkie Tawny, whatever his name is. And then we see the sidekicks walking away through the rain. There's Blob from the Sandman. This is Krill from Space Ranger. I think this guy's name is like Doiby Dickles or something. I can't remember who he's the sidekick. And of course, Ace the Bat Hound, who's one of my favorites. And they're just bemoaning their fate. Krill says, hey guys, maybe we should be like the Teen Titans and make like a crime-fighting team of sidekicks. Like how Doiby says, yeah, we could call it Sidekickers Inc. The Sidekick Squad, the Legion of Sidekicks. The next day, they attempt to do that, and Starro the Conqueror. No, what's this guy's name? I don't know. Starfish dude. He beats the shit out of all of them, and they're like, we're just sidekicks. We're not really good at this crime fighting thing. Sorry, I just love the way he draws Blob. He was made for Stephen Weissman to draw. So they decide to go to one of their meetings. I guess this is like a support group for discarded sidekicks. And Krill is giving a speech, talking about how, we're worth something. We should be proud of ourselves just for who we are. And then Space Ranger runs in and says, Krill, I've had amnesia for years after we fought the hypnonauts, but I'm better now. Come join me and we'll fight space crime together. And Krill's all like, oh, so you just think you can zoom back in here and I'll run back into your arms? Forget about it. These are my real friends. I've got a life of my own now. And Space Ranger's kind of walking away crying, just like, oh, I thought Krill would be happy. And then we see at night Krill is dreaming, fantasizing about flying through space with Space Ranger, getting into adventures. The next morning he's gone and he left a note, and all it says is, I'm sorry. So he did run off with Space Ranger. And they all end up the next day back at the place, hoping that a superhero will come by and give him a little assignment. There's Stripesy. Oh man, this is fun stuff. I could totally see this being a continuing series. So now we get Bizarre Wars Part 2 to close out the book. So this is a continuation of that first chunk. So Bizarro has drawn all these comics that we've just read. And Mixoplic's like, oh God, you fucking moron. This isn't gonna help. So the games begin. This grand cosmic game for control of the fifth dimension. And unfortunately, nothing's that funny. His colors are kind of wonky. Oh my God, it's Maurice Severin. I should have mentioned that. Maurice Severin covers this. I don't know if I like it. These are weird colors, but I guess it is the fifth dimension, so I guess it makes sense. We see the Justice League rushing there. They can't get into the fifth dimension. That cosmic being A has put like a cosmic wall around the whole dimension. So they're playing all their games. Mixoplex is losing. And then they let Bizarro come back into the games as his champion again. I guess he's a sub. I like that. That face design for Bizarro. I think the problem with this main story here, it's just not daffy enough. It's not dopey enough. You know, that's the beauty of like those more Weisinger like comics, like Jimmy Olsen, Bizarro. They're just so dopey and like just crazy zany plot twists, and I don't know. This is just trying to be like. I mean, there's a few things in here that are a little kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird and funny. Like one of the contests that Bizarro picks is he says the next game is going to be behind the rock music testimonial freeform, where he pretends to be a rock star, talking about imitating one of those VH1 Behind the Music documentaries. He talks about how they, back then, they had to worry about the constant threat of killer ham sandwiches. And we see Mama Cass here about to be stabbed by a ham sandwich. But for the most part, this is just like, just non sequiturs. And when they try to do jokes, they're kind of corny. Yeah, I've been a real negative Nelly this episode, guys. I'm sorry, but I just got to call some noise I see them. I mean, I like this book. I recommend you buy it. For the handful of gorgeous pages in here, it's worth it. And even the worst comics in here, almost all of them have pretty nice art, at least. The majority have pretty slick, cool cartooning. That's very interesting. I like this page. All these little panels. Yeah, like I said, guys, I'm not really going to tell you plot by plot, because plot point by plot point, it really doesn't make much sense. It's not funny. Speaking of Max Fleischer Superman, though, it really captures that well. And there we go. We got some pages of contributor notes, which is nice. I always love when they do shit like that. And that's it for Bizarro Comics. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. At the very least, it's fun to flip through, seeing how all these independent artists draw these classic DC characters. I just wish the writing was better. Almost all these writers usually write better. Like I said, I don't know if DC made them tone it down. But a lot of these guys are used to working, doing kids comics, but still being funny. Sam Henderson has comics in Nickelodeon. Evan Dorkin has definitely done like more G-rated stuff that's still funny. So it's kind of surprising some of the contributors in here, how lackluster they are compared to normal. But yeah, I want to blame DC editorial interference, but I can't really say that for sure. So who knows? But I hope you enjoyed looking at it, and I gotta say, it was still fun flipping through this and rereading it. But man, there's some stinkers in here that really bother the shit out of me, as you can tell. And yeah, I should be more positive. I'm sorry. Okay, guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you here next time at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies, which, by the way, we'll be looking at the second edition of Bizarro Comics, which is another full graphic novel. And hopefully it'll be a little better. Okay, good night.